8:33 is the time. Come back to our conversation about those league tables. Pleased to say now we are joined by Mick Lynch, who, of course, the boss of the RMT. He's joining us from that picket line at London's Euston Station. He's with me now, and you may be aware the Daily Mirror has an interview with you. Indeed, it's the front page today, Mr. Lynch, in which you say we're at a crossroads. Anti-union proposals coming on the back of the misery caused by the cost of living crisis. You say it's time for workers across the country, whether you're a member of a union or not, to take a stand before it's too late. Too late for what, Mr. Lynch? What would happen? Good morning.
Well, it looks like we're facing a government based on an even more extreme right-wing version of conservatism, and Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and I've just heard Grant Shapps are all proposing another raft of anti-trade union laws that will in effect make industrial action, that's meaningful industrial action, illegal in this country if they get their way. Now we'll have to see how that gets through Parliament and what form it comes through, but what they're saying to us is that we don't want any action, we don't want workers to be able to express themselves collectively, and we don't want anything that will have a meaningful effect and be able to rebalance the power in the workplace and the power in the economy. And what we've been seeing, I think, since the Cameron and Osborne government is an extension of austerity, which means wages are being driven down, conditions are being stripped out of many employment practices, and workers are fed up with it. And so the time has come, I think, for the trade union movement, the TUC and others, to get into the working class communities and say to them, there is a bit of hope. You can express yourself and you can get a better deal from the companies that are pushing down wages while dividends and shareholdings are up. We've got a band of the super rich that are getting richer every year, and there doesn't seem to be any regard for balancing wealth in this society, and it's time for the trade unions, I think, to step up to the mark on that.
Define, if you would, what is super rich? What does a man or woman have to make per annum, or what do they have to be worth to be super rich, Mr. Lynch?
Well, the super rich are the people that can live on the dividends, that own the means of production in our society. We've got the Jeff Bezoses, we've got the Elon Musks, we've got multi-millionaires, we've got people.
It's a pretty small band then, in reality, isn't it?
2 million. Well, there is a small band, and that's what's wrong with society, that it's not balanced. There are people that are working hard every day, people getting low salaries, modest salaries, and even good salaries, and then there's corporate greed, if you like. Right. We saw last week that £2 million bonuses were being paid out in the city, while we've got 60,000 vacancies in the NHS because nurses can't afford to work for it, as well as many other ancillary and support workers. Okay. And that's the score in many workplaces in Britain at the moment.
If I can bring you back to today's events, so obviously we have another strike across the railways. We had Sir Peter Hendy on earlier in the show, and he made the claim, which I will now play to you, Mr. Lynch, that the unions have not passed on the latest offer.
We've made some offers. None of them have ever been put to their members. We think that's quite unfair that the union leadership is not allowing the members to understand what it is that we're able to offer them. 2-year 8% deal with benefits and bonuses on the table, no compulsory redundancy and 75% discounted travel.
That's the deal. Why, if Sir Peter is right, why, Mr. Lynch, have you not put that to your workforce?
We have put it to our members. We put it to our members in mass meetings of our reps. We had a meeting the other night with 600 Network Rail reps on it who represent our members right across the country. And I'll tell you what is being put to our members. I'm on a picket line here that's got a massive turnout, and people are joining our union right now, Nick. 2,500 people have joined the companies in this dispute since we started. They know exactly what this offer is, and they know that it's unacceptable.
But Mr. Lynch,
it doesn't come up to meet the mark that we've put into the dispute.
But Mr.
We have
Lynch,
a democratic structure where we consult our members, and that's exactly what we've done.
But Mr. Lynch, is it that you've consulted your representatives or your reps, but not the whole workforce? Just to clarify, is that the case?
Well, we haven't conducted a referendum, no. We conduct
I wasn't asking for a referendum, Mr. Lynch, but why would you not allow the entire membership to vote on it?
Well, that's what a referendum would do. We would put a vote
but why would you not do that?
And they would vote because it comes nowhere near meeting the demands in the dispute. We've got
isn't that for the rail worker to decide, Mr. Lynch? Isn't that for the man or woman working on the railways, risking his or her life, working in the snow and the cold and the rain? Isn't it for him or her to decide?
They have decided that. So we conducted a vote. If you let me answer the question, Nick, that would be helpful. We've conducted a vote for our members on what the demands in the dispute are, and that's about getting a cost of living pay rise. We haven't had an offer that matches that. That's plain. We've asked for a set of conditions that would be negotiated with us, and Network Rail have come up with a set of conditions do not meet the aspirations of our members. On the train operating companies, we've had no offer on pay whatsoever. We've just had a list of demands put to us that involve closing every booking office in Britain, recontracting all our members into a new set of terms and conditions. We know they're unacceptable because our members have told us that
Mr. Lynch,
in the campaign leading up to this dispute.
Respectfully, just lastly on this point, I understand you have somewhere in the region of 80 to 90,000 members. They are not allowed to vote on this deal, says Sir Peter Hendy, and your 600 reps are. I ask again, why can't the 80 plus thousand have that vote? Perhaps they are happy with 2-year 8% no compulsory redundancies, 75% discount.
What? There aren't 82,000 people in the union, but not 43,000 in this dispute.
Okay, well, why not ask
so
the 43,000?
Referendum. We've given. Because if we do it, we've had multiple discussions. If I put a referendum out every time I come back from a discussion.
So, okay.
If we put a referendum every time I come back from a discussion, I'll be putting referendums out every day of the week.
Well, I have to say, Sir Peter is right then, isn't
he? No, he's not right. He's not right. We have consulted our members through the structures, the democratic structures and the rules of the union. That's what we do. We're very satisfied that our members support this dispute because they're here in their numbers, and from the north of Scotland down to the end of Cornwall, our members are out on strike, fully supporting the union's position, and they express themselves in that way. If they weren't happy about that, they would use the structures of the union to inform us, and they haven't done that. They support the dispute and the action that we're taking today.
Do you think the future, as Sir Keir Starmer seems to possibly indicating, is renationalisation of the railways, Mr. Lynch?
I think that the future of the railway has got to be public ownership, because what we need is an integrated transport policy that suits the needs of the public, the travelling public, that suits the needs of the freight distribution in this country, that gets vehicles off the road and integrates with the bus services and the ferry services and all the transport systems. And I think that would be far better off democratically controlled in the hands of the people rather than in the hands of profiteers, who last year took out £500 million from our industry in profits. And that's where the funding crisis is in this industry, that privateers have been ripping us off since privatisation back in the mid-90s.
On the subject of money, I think you might have been made aware, Grant Shapps has an article in one of the newspapers today, the Daily Telegraph, in which he spells out the fact that during the pandemic we paid £160,000 for every job on the railway to retain that post, which is £600 for every household in the country, with a total cost over 2 years of £16 billion. That was to keep you and your colleagues who do a crucial job in their jobs. Should that not be repaid now?
Well, it wasn't for that purpose. The purpose was to run the railway. So the railway has heavy engineering.
Virtually no one was on it.
It's a civil engineering project. I know virtually no one was on it. Our members are on it.
During the pandemic, it was to keep.
Grant Shapps' government told people not to go to work, and we ran the system. We ran the freight systems that functioned fully. We ran the passenger systems to get the key workers to their workplaces, and they funded the companies. They didn't fund the railway workers. The railway workers didn't get 160,000. If they got that, we wouldn't be on strike. The members that are behind me here on this picket line are on salaries of about 25 to 30,000. But what they did fund was the rolling stock leasing companies. They got £200 million of profit. The train operating companies took £200 million of profit last year, and Network Rail subcontractors took profits as well. So what's they subsidised is people like Andrew Haines and Peter Hendy, who are on £500,000 a year each. Peter Hendy gets £300,000 a year for about 1 day's work a month, and they're the ones that are telling us that our members can't have a pay rise. So they funded the train industry, the railway industry, including the private sector operators who had lovely profits, thank you very much, from that public subsidy. Our members went to work and run the railway in return for their wages. They got nothing more and nothing less.
Finally, a word on a bit of a row over one of your colleagues, Eddie Dempsey, who I think is your deputy, if I've got that right, who, it is reported, lives in taxpayer-subsidised social housing in Islington Council. And as you rightly point out, You say, when did council
What
housing
subsidy is the
become...
taxpayer giving to his
Yes,
housing?
as you rightly point out, when did council housing become? When did council housing become for people that are poor? You don't have to be poor. You're absolutely right, of course, Mr. Lynch. But do you not agree that he might be blocking that property for somebody who is not in receipt of a six-figure salary? That's a fair point, isn't it?
Well, he's not in receipt of a six-figure salary for starters. So I know what his salary is because he works for me and he doesn't receive a six-figure salary.
I apologise. I would imagine it's a healthy. I would imagine it's a healthy salary, though.
Six-figure salary either.
Okay, I would imagine
he gets a healthy salary. He gets well paid for his job.
So
he got his council.
I understand he gets £78,200.
£78,200.
Mr. Lynch, please. He gets £78,282.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, plus pension contributions and others. So he gets a basic salary of 70.
Yeah, that's not a salary.
Should he be in council accommodation if he's earning that? Is he not possibly blocking it for a family, someone who's not in receipt of that amount of money?
I don't think he is blocking it at all. What he got is his council flat that he got as a person on the register when he was a railway worker. And he and his partner live there with his children, and they have the tenancy like all council tenants do.
Yes, indeed.
And when he's ready to move, I assume he'll move. It's not a question of when you earn a few more bob, you get evicted from your council
I'm not
flat.
saying it is. I'm not saying it is.
When I lived, well, that's what you seem to be.
No,
that's what you seem to be
what I'm
implying.
asking is
someone
on...
He's been in the job he's got since October last year,
right?
When he got elected to office. And before that, he was a railway worker, and he received his council flat by waiting on the list like other council tenants.
But lastly, is the
what
point
do you want him to do? Be evicted because he's got a new job?
Mr. Lynch, if you'll let me say,
well, that seems to be what you're implying.
Well, if you'd pause and allow me
you
to...
seem to be implying that he shouldn't live there.
Mr. Lynch,
it's his tenancy, and he pays the rent. I'm not aware that he's in receipt of any subsidy from anyone.
Mr. Lynch, if you let me make my point...
Are you aware that he's on some subsidy?
You're not letting me make my point respectfully. I'm always saying that someone who has a salary of that level, 70+ thousand, some would say, is in some way blocking that accommodation for families more in need. That was the point I was making.
Well, what we need is more council houses so that people from all sorts of incomes can live in mixed environments. When I was living in a council flat in the 60s and 70s with my parents, there were people from all sorts of backgrounds living in council flats. The problem is that the government stopped building council flats and houses, so that we can't have that mixed environment in our inner cities of people living comfortably side by side from all sorts of backgrounds. And what we need is a mixed environment of people from all income levels living cooperatively in council accommodation. And I don't believe he should be evicted because he's got a new job.
I totally agree with you. I've not for one moment suggested your colleague should be evicted. I'm just making the point, if you're making £78,282 a year in salary, should you be enjoying that when other families might need it more? Grateful for your time. Mick Lynch is General Secretary of the RMT, talking to us from the picket line at Euston Station in London. 8:46 LBC News headlines. Simon Conway.